For your listening pleasure, Airtime of the Geek.
Hello Ignition Radio listeners and welcome to Airtime of the Geek. It's Monday and it's just gone 1pm GMT if you're listening live or via our website or via TuneIn. If you're catching up on YouTube, then please like and subscribe to this video and our channel. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can email me. It's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. You can also call the studio. It's 01642 329 620 or check out my website. It's airtimeofthegeek.xyz. Continuing on with our look back at movies from history, today we'll be doing a retrospective of The Saint, which is celebrating its 20th year anniversary. I know, I feel old as well. So, before we kick off today's show, I am going to play a little song, and that song is by the seminal band a-ha, who you may have heard just now with James and Alex and Off the Cuff. It's the other big a-ha hit. It is, of course, Sun Always Shines on TV. For this week's Top 10, we are counting down my top 10 movies that are complete rip-offs of other movies. So it's almost more fun for me to start in reverse order. I'm going to start with number 10, Cars Ripped Off Doc Hollywood. So, a young hotshot professional heads to California to attain fame and fortune, but a random accident strands him in a hick town in the middle of nowhere, where he'll learn a valuable lesson and find true love. I'm talking about Doc Hollywood, the Michael J. Fox comedy about a doctor who wants to go to Hollywood, and also Cars, the Pixar film about cars. These movies are so similar, it's almost like they're set in mirror dimensions, and in one of those dimensions, every character is a talking car. In both movies, the ambitious protagonist is about halfway to his destination when he ends up going off-road and destroying some property. He is then brought before the local judge who sentences him to several hours of community service. These two judges are practically the same character, but then again, so is every other judge who appears in a movie. At this point, the protagonist is mocked by local residents for his big city ways, remaining arrogant until he makes a serious mistake that he fixes with the help of a small-town veteran who will become his mentor. That's a pretty specific sequence of events there, Pixar. Oh, and there is a shared love interest, a sassy, tomboyish female of his same species who teases him about his origins and general manners while showing him the beauty of living a simple life in a small town. Their relationship starts moving forward, and they go on a nice, if unusual, date. So they're hitting it off pretty well. Then the protagonist goes away to California anyway, even though she asks him not to, because apparently he's still a deeply selfish guy/anthropomorphic car. In California, he performs his job admirably, but secretly feels nostalgic about his time in the small town, which we know because he closes his eyes and looks really serious about it. Finally, he's offered a contract by the big company he was hoping for, but a visit from his quirky, unsophisticated friends convinces him to ditch California in favour of the small town, where he's reunited with his love interest. The major difference is, well, one's a movie about a talking car. Can't really get around that. So, if you were listening to the previous show, Off the Cuff, with James and Alex, you may have heard me speak briefly about this. If you didn't, you can check it out on Mixcloud. The address is mixcloud.com/JamesRez. So number 9, Avatar is a complete rip-off of Dances with Wolves. Look, it really is. It really absolutely is, right? So in Avatar, Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington, leaves Earth behind in 2154 to jet off to distant Pandora, a lushly untamed planet filled with danger and intrigue and populated by an indigenous population called the Na'vi. In Wolves, John Dunbar, played by Kevin Costner, leaves behind American civilization during the Civil War to travel to the untouched western frontier where Native Americans still flourish. Of course, both these native populations are under threat from aggression from white colonists. Sully was a Marine until he lost the use of his legs. Now he's confined to a wheelchair. Technology to repair his injured spine exists, but the ex-soldier can't afford the procedure. Sully's superior promises that if he completes his assignment, he'll be given the surgery for free. Army Lieutenant Dunbar suffers a severe leg injury that will require amputation, until his superior intervenes and hands over his personal doctor to perform surgery for free and ensure that Dunbar still has 2 working legs. In both Avatar and Wolves, it's not long before the foreign white man takes a liking to the native culture he inhabits. Through the use of his Na'vi avatar, Sully frolics with the big blue humanoids, learning they're at peace with the land ways and their language. So it is with Dunbar, who is taught the Sioux tongue and begins to appreciate their connection to nature. Sully and Dunbar bond with their new friends around campfire and learn to hunt. Their relationships with animals, wolves and crazy flying creatures help establish their connection to the new cultures. Each has a close bond with a horse or a horse-like creature. The Na'vi and the Sioux eventually recognise them as a part of their tribe. The men, in turn, choose to live with the tribe rather than their native people, who they come to see as barbaric and disconnected from nature. Sully falls for Natiri, played by Zoe Saldana. Dunbar falls for Stands with a Fist, played by Mary McDonnell. Both women act as the men's translator. Both relationships are taboo, so they must make love in secret. While the romances arouse anger when they first come to light, both tribes ultimately accept the pairings. During their journeys of love and adventure, Sully and Dunbar contribute voice-over narration, one through a high-tech video journal, the other with a simple pen and paper. When the cruel industrialists decide to kick their conflict with the Na'vi into overdrive, Sully rounds his big blue brethren to fight the good fight, where the Sioux find themselves facing off a nearby Native American tribe. Dunbar leads his adopted people, guns blazing, into battle. Both the Na'vi and the Sioux triumph, at least temporarily. You know, those evil white colonists are just going to keep on fighting. James Cameron was accused by a man called Gerald Murawski that he stole his screenplay to make Avatar, and a judge named Margaret Morrow ruled in favour of Cameron. Why? Cameron's attorneys proved the director actually stole the plot from Kevin Costner's Oscar-winning film Dances with Wolves in a court of law. This is a quote. After seeing the evidence, I realised this lawsuit has no merit and James Cameron is really a lazy screenwriter, Judge Morrow told Hollywood and Swine. Someone needs to show Avatar to Kevin Costner because I think he may have a really good lawsuit. That's a quote from the judge. Cameron's defence team played Dances with Wolves in court for Judge Morrow and then played Avatar to show the striking plot similarities from the 2 films. Cameron's defence team also presented a blockbuster video receipt from March 2nd, 1991, the night Cameron first rented Dances with Wolves. Cameron's ex-wife, Zero Dark 30 director Catherine Bigelow, who was still married to Cameron at the time, was brought in to testify. She said, "An hour after we watched Dances with Wolves, James told me this great idea he just came up with, which turned out to be Avatar," Bigelow said during her testimony. "I assumed he was joking since he was pitching Dances with Wolves with giant blue aliens. He didn't appreciate me laughing at him, and after that our marriage never recovered." Legal experts point out that Cameron's defence team strategy is eerily similar to one used in a lawsuit last year by filmmaker Ed Zwick, who was sued for the idea of his Tom Cruise blockbuster The Last Samurai from 2 screenwriters. Zwick's attorneys won the lawsuit because they proved that, like Cameron, Zwick had also stolen the film's plot from Dances with Wolves. I'm completely astonished that Kevin Costner isn't suing these people because those movies both made a ton of money. Someone contact Kevin Costner and give him Google or like a Netflix account. Seriously. So joining me in the studio now is professional leftman James.
Hello, I am the leftist of left men.
You may know him from such shows as Off the Cuff and The Super Awesome Show.
And the new show, starting this Saturday.
Oh, which is?
Lone Frequencies.
Lone Frequencies. What time will that be on?
We think 6.
6? We think 6.
The time is still up for debate.
Well, if we are unable to catch this live, then I'm sure that people can catch up on it on Mixcloud. What's the address?
It's mixcloud.com/JamesO'Rez. Do-do-do-do.
Excellent. So, continuing. Oh, we made ourselves laugh.
This has to be said like that.
Continuing on with the top 10, I'm up to number 8. Guess the movie. A man is confined to his home and he begins spying on his neighbours. One day he witnesses something which leads him to believe that his neighbour has murdered someone, and the movie is filled with suspense as he tries to prove it to the rest of the world.
I've seen a few of these. One of them had Samuel Jackson in it. And there's an older one where... I don't know, tell me.
Okay, so the movie is Rear Window. But that was made
1954!
in 1954.
It didn't even exist!
But it's also the plot of the film Disturbia,
That was what I was thinking of.
released in 2007, because
Right.
it completely rips off Rear Window. So, Rear Window, 1954 suspense film, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by John Michael Hayes, based on the Cornell Woolrich 1942 short story It Had to Be Murder. And it was released by Paramount and stars James Stewart, Grace Kelly, Wendell Corey, Thelma Ritter, all these like really old glam Hollywood stars. The plot's around a wheelchair-bound photographer who breaks his leg due to attempting to take a picture of a race car accident. And he's been confined to a wheelchair and stuck in his apartment for 6 weeks with nothing to do. So he decides to spy on his neighbours from his apartment window and becomes convinced one of them's done a murder. Mm-hmm. Not even his daily visits from his nurse Stella and his girlfriend Lisa can keep him away from spying for his neighbours. Now, Disturbia is a 2007 film that's the rip-off.
Oh, is him in it? Right.
So, directed by DJ Caruso. It stars Shia LaBeouf.
Yep.
Shia LaBeouf, David Morse, Sarah Roman and Carrie-Anne Moss. Mm-hmm. And it was released in 2007. And the plot's about a teenager, Cale Brecht, played by LaBeouf, who's got 2 ridiculous names, who is sentenced to 3 months house arrest after assaulting his teacher at school, and the teacher made a remark about his father. So he's secured with an ankle monitor and is only allowed 100 feet from his house. His mother, Julie, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, cuts him off from everything he could make use of, like television, video games, music, to keep the costs down.
Yeah.
So Cale has nothing to do but start spying on his neighbours, including Robert Turner, the new neighbour, Ashley Carlson, and his best friend. After Cale greets Ashley, the 3 of them become close friends and begin researching Turner, after Cale witnesses several strange occurrences at Turner's house and think Turner might be a serial killer. So despite showing its age, Rear Window will undoubtedly be long revered as a masterpiece of suspense. Mm-hmm. Hitchcock, regardless of his personal failings, turns to pull viewers into the action, and he makes us as accomplices to Jeff's voyeurism, whereas Disturbia manages some intrigue on its own, but through well-worn methods that fail to even pay homage to their source. Then again, in the YouTube age, most videos are quickly forgotten. Yeah. My opinion, as soon as I saw Disturbia, I was like, this is Rear Window.
See, I had no knowledge of Rear Window, so obviously I didn't know it was the original thing. But I was like, that was alright. There's Boy Meets World again.
We have to do a film review show where just no matter what the film, it's James's review. That was alright.
I didn't mind it. So what was your opinion? Everybody's really in-depth ones, and I'm like, that was alright.
So, James approves of Disturbia.
Yeah, it was alright. I mean, I've seen it once, I'm never going to watch it again.
Yeah.
But, they killed, let's say an hour and a half.
Yeah, the Hitchcock's a classic, though. It's Hitchcock. He's great.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to play a song it's actually from the film Disturbia rather than Rear Window, because Rear Window doesn't have that many pop songs in it, I'll be honest. Okay, James, guess the movie. Right, are you ready for this? Okay.
Apocalypse Now.
Not yet. So, the series is about an ancient order of warriors. They hold allegiance to no nation, and they use their martial, magical, and telepathic powers in the service of peace and justice. They use multicoloured, indestructible swords in their ventures. Sometime before the beginning of the movie, an evil man destroyed the order and established an empire. He became an emperor, and he did this with the help of an evil branch of the order and one guy in particular who was his second in command. The first film opened with the perspective of a young man, sandy-haired farm boy who was raised by his aunt and uncle, who are murdered by servants of the Empire, shortly after he finds a mysterious object that belongs to said evil empire. This prompts him to flee his home in a quest for vengeance. Accompanying him on this quest is a grouchy, wise, yet old former member of the Ancient Order. He gives the main character his father's sword and teaches him just enough in the ways of the Order to get by before he gets killed in the second act. Shortly after the old man's death, the farm boy and his friends travel into the heart of the Empire to rescue a princess. The group heads off to join an alliance of rebels and combat the Empire's forces. In the second installment, the farm boy and his companions manage to thwart the Empire for now, so our hero travels to a distant planet to meet his second teacher, another surviving member of the Order. He teaches the farm boy deeper secrets, turning him into a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, the farm boy has to leave before he finds out his friends are in trouble. But before he does, he promises to return to complete his training. He eventually does, just for long enough for his teacher to reveal a secret about his family, and then dies shortly afterwards. At the climax, we find out that the guy who is the second in command is actually the farm boy's father. Eventually, the farm boy makes his way to the Emperor to challenge him himself, but is outclassed by his more powerful opponent. Just when things are looking at their worst, the farm boy's father turns against the Emperor and saves him. Name that movie, James.
Star Wars.
Of course it's bloody Star Wars.
I was confused at the start. I was like, because you kept saying farm boy. I was like, that's
Yeah.
Star Wars, but is it Star Wars?
No, he's a moisture farmer.
Yeah.
He's a farm boy. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
swords.
Yeah. It's Star Wars.
I got it.
Yeah, but it's also the plot of a different movie.
What is it now?
Eragon. Have you heard of Eragon?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Eragon is a complete rip-off of Star Wars, right? It was a book written by a 10-year-old. Not joking.
There you go.
Part of a series called The Inheritance Cycle, the first of which made into a movie called Eragon. Mm-hmm. I never heard of the book when I sat down to watch the movie with a couple of friends, one of whom absolutely loved it. And yeah, and he got really angry with like me and my other friend as we started like pointing out all of like the Star Wars similarities, and it was hitting all of the major plot beats, and then with a lot of names stolen from Lord of the Rings. So it was like a mashup between the two. It was like Eragon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like basically it's like all the names from Lord of the Rings changed ever so slightly.
10-year-olds!
Yeah. Like, thankfully, it wasn't popular enough, like, for me to get too angry about it. Like, Eragon didn't rip off an obscure foreign film. It ripped off Star Wars. Like, plenty of people noticed it. It's like, it's Star Wars with dragons.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a complete rip-off. And there's loads of fans who say, it's not a rip-off. There's this whole other plot point that's not in Star Wars. It's like, that doesn't mean it's not a rip-off of Star Wars.
Exactly, yeah.
Just because it then added its own plot thread.
Wow.
Yep. Complete rip-off. They should be ashamed of himself. Yeah.
And of doing it from Star Wars as well?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like no one's heard of Star Wars.
Did you see Last Legends?
Last Legends?
That's Legends of Tomorrow, sorry.
Oh, no, I have not.
Can't say what I'm going to say.
No. I'm one episode behind on Legends of Tomorrow. That was a sidebar there.
We could have said something really cool, though. Future us, it would have been good.
Oh.
You'll see when
We'll have to say it next week. Yeah. When it's, like, no longer relevant.
Oh, by the way. Sounds perfect. Can't say no to it.
Right, I'm playing the Star Wars theme. So, number 6... This is one that we were discussing during the break.
We were indeed.
Aladdin ripped off The Thief and the Cobbler. See, back in the late 60s, a Canadian animator named Richard Williams began production on what eventually became The Thief and the Cobbler. And the film ended up taking more than 20 years to produce, mainly because the film's funding was coming from smaller projects such as commercials and television specials. And it wasn't until the late 80s that after Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg picked up on the film, and not very long after that, Dick was hired to do the animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The film went on to be a major success, not to mention it won the guy 2 Oscars for his work. And a few years later, Warner Brothers made a deal with Dick to distribute the film. However, things took a turn for the worse. The film was going over budget, deadlines weren't being met, and some executives at Warner's began worrying about Disney's Aladdin, whose release date coincided with that of The Thief. And as you might have guessed, Warner's got cold feet and backed out of the deal. Soon afterwards, the film was taken over by the Completion Bond Company and headed by Fred Calvert, a veteran TV animator who reworked the film into a mess called The Princess and the Cobbler. A few years after Princess was released in 1993, Miramax purchased the film's rights and assembled their own version of the film, released in 1995 as Arabian Night, which was then renamed The Thief and the Cobbler for its home video release. Sadly, Dick's version of the film has never seen the light of day, but thanks to fan efforts, the recobbled cut is an unofficial, non-profit restoration of the film, and it was constructed by stitching together bits and pieces of the previous two films and Dick's work print, and serves as a glimpse at what the film might have been had it been completed according to Dick's original intent. If you've never heard of The Thief and the Cobbler, it's really hard to think of what Disney could have possibly ripped off. After all, it's based on an Arabian Nights tale. So it isn't an original story, but just showing from Google, the second you see an image of the movie's character Zigzag, you can see that the animators at Disney had most definitely had access to the working prints of the films over the years, because the character designs are so similar. You can't deny that this has had a direct influence. Like, the recobbled cut has, instead of like a lot of animated sequences, it's just like storyboards and things laid over because of the absolute mess that the studio made of the film, which is so sad considering that the film took like 30 years to actually get a release.
That's insane. Like,
this was this guy's life work, and it got taken away from him at the last minute. It wasn't like someone came in after he'd been working on it 10 years. It'd been nearly 30 years, and they came and took it away from him. I know, it's horrible.
That's sad. It's just how it works, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, somebody saw and went, wow, this guy's got a really good idea.
Yeah.
We get Aladdin out and...
Yeah, pretty much. So, I feel bad because the music from The Thief and the Cobbler is very good, but there's no song lyrics to it. So I'm going to play a song from The Return of Jafar, which is a sequel I really enjoy. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can email me. It's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. You can call the studio on 01642329620 or check out my website, airtimeofthegeek.xyz. James has left me now, so he's not going to be able to guess the next movie, but maybe you can at home, dear listeners. Okay, guess the movie. An undercover law enforcement officer must delve into an exotic LA subculture in order to crack a ring of daring thieves. The film establishes some long, lovingly shot sequences to establish the sport that the thieves are partaking in. The undercover cop has some trouble picking up the sport, embarrassing himself in the process. He falls in love with a waitress. The waitress spurns the cop's advances, finding his flirting irritating. She is connected to the mysterious and charismatic leader of the group of thieves, who is very wary of the two's relationship. The leader is handsome and popular with the ladies, which makes a lady in his life very jealous. A prominent popular musician plays a supporting role. His last scene in the movie is a comical one. The cop's first encounter with the group is very tense. However, the cop and the leader bond when one rescues the other one from a dangerous situation, and then they eat shrimp and fries together on the beach. The cop has a grizzled veteran partner who is assisting him in the investigation, and he is under pressure from his commanding officer to solve the case. The cop participates in a race on another character, but is subsequently disgraced in the department's eyes when it is revealed that the gang, though involved in criminal activities, are the wrong guys. The veteran partner fears the cop is getting too close to the waitress and the charismatic leader, and is clouding the cop's vision to the truth, that he is the guy that they're looking for. The leader reveals an obsession to the cop, one which he fears, but seems to be his ultimate fate. The cop risks everything when he finds himself involved in the gang's final botched robbery, as the two of the gang are wounded by the reckless actions of an outsider who tried to stop them. It was supposed to be their last job. The cop eventually goes against his instincts as a law officer and lets the charismatic leader go. The film ends with the leader's fate being ambiguous, and the cop walks away in slow motion as the music of the end credits swells. Any guesses? Well, of course, it's the classic movie Point Break, and also the movie which ripped it off, The Fast and the Furious. The major difference being that Point Break is about surfing and The Fast and the Furious is about cars. That seems to be a theme on this list, doesn't it? Point Break was always intended to be a standalone movie, whereas The Fast and the Furious currently has 974,000 sequels, each more ridiculous than the last. Point Break's legacy has become that it's a sort of so bad it's good classic cop film, whereas Fast and the Furious is better remembered and not considered as cheesy, but as each sequel comes to life, the quality seriously degrades. There was a remake of Point Break in 2015, which was... I'll start again. There was a remake of Point Break in 2015, which was considered by all to be a big pile of poo. So, number 4 is a bit complicated. Pirates of the Caribbean ripped off Monkey Island, but as I said, it's complicated. Get ready to take notes. So, in 1990, an adventure game came out called Monkey Island. It was a point-and-click game following the adventures of a wannabe pirate called Guybrush Threepwood. He is enamoured with the governor of the island he lands on, Elaine Marley, and he has to fight the villainous LeChuck, a ghost pirate with a crew of ghosts and skeletons, which he does by learning sword fight and with the help of a mysterious voodoo lady. The game was made by Ron Gilbert, who said he drew inspirations from the Disney ride, The Pirates of the Caribbean, and a book written by Tim Powers called On Stranger Tides. Several sequels to Monkey Island were made, introducing new characters, and the games were extremely popular. In the year 2000, Lucasfilms, with Industrial Light and Magic, began working on a film called The Curse of Monkey Island, which was to be based on an amalgam of the games in order to include later characters who were extremely popular, such as Murray the all-powerful demonic skull. A writer was brought in called Ted Elliott. Ted worked on the script, but during development the film was cancelled. Don't worry about Ted, though. He found another job when he was hired by Disney to write the script for a movie based on one of their rides, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. All the core concepts of the Monkey Island script were transformed into Pirates of the Caribbean. Guybrush became Will Turner, Elaine became Elizabeth, LeChuck became Barbossa, the voodoo lady became a skinny voodoo lady. While not as offensive as the rip-off films such as Fast and the Furious taking on Point Break, the similarities were very obvious. However, the additional characters such as Captain Jack Sparrow made it more of its own film, but many Monkey fans noticed and commented on it, though it wasn't actually revealed until 2007, the connections between the franchise, when Steve Purcell, who is a long-time collaborator on the sort of adventure games, he released a bunch of scripts from the cancelled Monkey Island film and concept artwork as well. The Pirates franchise, however, ran into problems when it came to the fourth movie. You see, they decided they were going to adapt an original story in order to make a movie without Will or Elizabeth. The book they chose? On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers. So they took the unused plot points from the book to develop the film, and in my opinion, it was a great improvement on the third Pirates. However, it added a completely unnecessary romance subplot, which dragged the whole thing down. But, basically, Pirates of the Caribbean is Monkey Island in a very strange roundabout way, which when they decided they were going to, like when they announced, we're going to do another Pirates film, it's going to be based on Stranger Tides, a lot of Monkey fans were like, but they already did that with the first film. Well, it's Disney. They like money. There's going to be a fifth Pirates film. Wonder if that's going to be based on Monkey 3. Number 3, guess the movie. In a dystopian future, organ transplants have become a commodity. There's a giant corporation that sells them at high prices, and if you can't keep up with the repayments, well, they'll send out a repo man to take back hearts, kidneys, eyes, and other organs from the customers who can't afford to pay their bills. We've covered this before, of course. It's Repo, the genetic opera. But it's also the plot of Repo Men. And Repo Men completely ripped off the genetic opera. They were even sued. Literally, the only reason the judge in the case decided that Repo Men was also original is that Repo the Genetic Opera has singing in it. The Genetic Opera was initially a stage musical first performed in the year 2000 and made into a film in 2008. Repo Men was released in 2010 based on a novel which was written in 2009. So how similar are they in premise? Pretty damn similar. There are blogs all over the internet that have pored over the pages of Repossession Mamba, which is the name of the novel on which Repo Men is based. And they have found sections of directly lifted dialogue as well as concepts with only minor changes. For example, in Genetic Opera, people become addicted to a surgery drug known as Zydrate or Z. In Mambo, it's called Q. One is blue, the other is red, but they both come from the same place, dead bodies. The good news is that whilst Repo Men enjoyed a big budget, it's fallen into relative obscurity, whereas Genetic Opera continues to enjoy a cult following. Sadly, due to the writers losing their rights to Genetic Opera, it meant they were no longer able to perform it themselves as they always had on the stage, nor could they make the sequel that they'd always intended. However, they did manage to finance a new project called The Devil's Carnival, which is as close to a sequel as they were allowed to make. And it features several cast members from the original Genetic Opera. Number 2, guess the movie. Okay, this is a really controversial one. A young lion cub in Africa is the son of a king lion. His father is murdered and he becomes an exile. He decides to head back though, and along the way he learns to be a good king. On his journey he comes across 2 fellows who become his companions. They aren't so bright, but they're good of heart. The young lion receives instruction on how to be good, conducted by a brightly coloured bird who serves as an advisor. The king lion had a confidant who is a baboon, who gives a helping hand to the young prince lion. He also gains a female companion, a female lion he's known all his life. His father appears to the prince lion in the clouds to give him a bit of advice. There is a dark lion with a dark mane who is the villain of the piece, who keeps hyenas as mooks in order to carry out their orders. Of course you know this movie. Of course you do. It's Kimba the White Lion. No, I didn't mispronounce Simba. Kimba the White Lion was first written as a manga in 1950 and was made into an anime in 1965, had a film in 1966, followed by another series the same year, then another in 1989, and then again in 1997. In Japan, this is a really long-running series, and it was dubbed into English and released worldwide. In 1993, Disney released some stills from a project it was working on, and it was called King of the Jungle. It featured 2 lions, one of whom was white. And if you would like to view these, you can either look them up on the internet or pop in your Lion King DVD, because they're on the presentation reel as an extra. In fact, Disney never really hid the idea that they were blatantly stealing Kimba without paying for it. Roy E. Disney referred to the central character in their new production as Kimba when he was asked about it in an interview, though by that point the title had changed from King of the Jungle to The Lion King. When Matthew Broderick, voice of Simba, went on his audition, he was told it was to be a remake of Kimba, a cartoon he remembered watching as a child. One of the animators even wore a Kimba suit to the cast party and photo session. Literally, the only reason that there hasn't been a major lawsuit over this is because the company who owned the rights to Kimba went bankrupt in 1973, and there's been contention over them ever since. So as much as I love The Lion King, it is a complete rip-off. So, for the number one, and anyone who knows me is going to know what this is, because it's not the first time I've had a rant about this. All right, guess the movie. In a dystopian future, after a war between citizens and the government, a new law is declared. Each year, a group of school children will be randomly selected and taken to a secluded area. Cameras are dotted all over the place so people can watch from home. The rules are, the last man standing will win. Kill or be killed. The games are considered extremely cruel, but anyone who opposes the government is killed. The latest selection, there is a boy and a girl who team up. The boy is completely in love with the girl, and they end up becoming mentored by a previous winner of the games, who is deeply troubled by what happened to him years before. The children are all given a bag in which contains a weapon and some basic supplies. There is an overseer of the games who can make the areas of the arena dangerous for players to force them to be on the move. He also interferes so that the girl has a better chance of survival. Every time a contestant is killed, there is an announcement of the arena so the others know who remains. Some of the children are eager to play. Some volunteer for the honour. Some are kind and spare others' lives. Some form small alliances for either protection or to take out the competition. At the end, the boy and the girl become the last ones standing and escape death. The overseer of the game is killed. The government becomes very angry and mistrustful of the boy and girl, knowing they have affected the games forever. In the sequel, the previous winners of the game all gather together and are forced to play it again. What movie is this? It's Battle Royale. The novel was completed in 1996 and published in 1999 and made it for film in the year 2000. It was adapted into a manga series from 2003 to 2006, and the sequel of the film was released also in 2003. In 2006, there was plans for an American adaptation, and that was huge news. However, the Virginia Tech massacre in 2007 forced it into development hell until 2012, when it was officially cancelled due to the release of another movie, and that movie was called The Hunger Games. The first book of the Hunger Games trilogy was released in 2008, which was a very long time after Battle Royale was. The first movie was released in 2012. Fans of the series say that despite similar themes, it's not a rip-off of Battle Royale. Here's the plot of The Hunger Games. In a dystopian future, after a war between citizens and the government, a new law is declared. Each year, a group of school-aged children will be randomly selected and taken to a secluded area. Cameras are dotted all over the place so that people can watch from home. The rules are the last man standing will win. Kill or be killed. The games are considered extremely cruel, but anyone who opposes the government is killed. In the latest selection, there is a boy and a girl who team up. The boy is completely in love with the girl, and they end up being mentored by a previous winner of the games, who is deeply troubled by what happened to him years before. The children are all given a bag which contains a weapon and basic supplies. There is an overseer of the games who can make the arena dangerous for players and forces them to move. He also interferes with the games so that a girl can stand a better chance of survival. Every time there is a contestant killed, there is an announcement of the arena so that the others know who remains. Some of the children are eager to play, some volunteer for the honour, some are kind and spare others' lives. Some form small alliances either for protection or to take out the competition. At the end, the boy and the girl become the last ones standing and escape death. The overseer of the game is killed. The government becomes very angry and mistrustful of the boy and girl, knowing they've affected the games forever. In the sequel, the previous winners of the games are all gathered together and forced to play again. It's the same plot. As a fan of Battle Royale since its released, I was massively annoyed with the Hunger Games and its authors and the fans' denial of it being a rip-off. They see that's how angry I am. I knocked something over. You see, it's blatantly a rip-off, and the book, while written well in places, is full of logical inconsistencies, and the main character is completely unlikable. And in the movie, I found Jennifer Lawrence played the part as, like, bored and disinterested in her imminent death and everything going on around her. Like, Battle Royale being Japanese focuses on a small part on almost all the children taking part, whereas Hunger Games, they are largely brushed over. Some names aren't even revealed. Battle Royale does not hold back on the violence and the awfulness of it. It's scary and horrific. The main character, Shuya, is forced to kill several times in order to survive, and he feels terrible guilt when the characters are killed because of him. Katniss, however, tries not to get her hands dirty as much as possible and doesn't even contemplate fighting against the system. Whereas in Battle Royale, groups of the children form alliances, they decide not to play the game, except that eventually they'll die, and some even actively fight against the government during the game. The main differences between the two are small. In Battle Royale, they are all forced to wear collars which explode when either the game master decides or at the end of a 3-day limit when either a winner must emerge or everyone remaining will die. In Hunger Games, there doesn't seem to be a time limit as to how long the games go on for, and prior to the event, contestants are paraded around and try to get sponsors, and it's all turned into a big cruel game show. Whereas in Battle Royale, the children don't know that they're being pulled in, which adds to the terrifying nature of the game. When I first watched Battle Royale, it was so scary. I knew I'd never survive a game like that. Hunger Games seems like a piece of cake in comparison. It's far easier to hide and steal supplies. The game could go on indefinitely. Hunger Games is a poor man's Battle Royale. I know who would win in a fight to the death, and it's certainly not Katniss Everdeen. That was my top 10. If you're catching up on YouTube, then please like and subscribe to this video and our channel. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can email me. It's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. You can call the studio on 01642 329 620 or check out my website, airtimeofthegeek.xyz. So, the Oscar nominations have been announced for 2017. Let's take a quick look. For Best Picture, the nominees are Arrival, Fences, Hawkshaw Ridge. That's the movie that's trying its best in all its promotional material to avoid the fact that Mel Gibson has anything to do with it. Hello, High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land and Lion, Manchester by the Sea and Moonlight. Out of this slot, I've only seen La La Land, and it was terrible. From what I've seen from trailers, it would be nice for Arrival to get a nod, as it's good when anything that isn't a standard drama or a true story wins. But Hidden Figures is the one whose premise really appeals to me, and it stars Octavia Spencer, who I absolutely adore. And I'm absolutely spitting teeth that she hasn't got the nod for Best Actress. Though Ruth Negga does, and she's a Brit, so it'd be nice to see her win. Meryl Streep has enough Oscars already. She doesn't need to win. That was the Verve Bittersweet Symphony, which was a huge hit in 1997. 1997 was, of course, 20 years ago, and that was when the movie The Saint was released. It's a terrible movie, but I love it. The Saint is a 1997 espionage thriller starring Val Kilmer in the title role and Elizabeth Shue. It is loosely based on the character of Simon Templar, created by Leslie Curtis in 1928 for a series of books published as The Saint, which ran until 1983. The Saint character has also featured in a series of Hollywood movies made between 1938 and 1954, a 1940s radio series starring Vincent Price and others as Templar, a popular British television series of the 1960s which starred Roger Moore, and a 1970s series starring Ian Ogilvy. At the St. Ignatius Orphanage, a rebellious boy named John Rossi refers to himself as Simon Templar. and leads a group of fellow orphans as they attempt to run away and escape their harsh treatment. Just as Simon is caught by the head priest, he witnesses the tragic death of a girl he had taken a liking to when she accidentally falls from a balcony. As an adult, Simon, played by Val Kilmer, now a professional thief dubbed the Saint for using the names of Catholic saints as aliases, and steals a valuable microchip belonging to a Russian oil company. Simon stages the burglary during the political rally held for the company's owner, Ivan Trechak, played by Raid Serbejiza. Don't know how to pronounce it. I apologise. You were a wonderful actor, and I've seen you in many things. Trechak is a former Communist Party boss and a billionaire oil and gas oligarch who is rallying support against the Russian president. Simon is caught in the act by Trechak's son Ilya, played by, and again I'm going to butcher this, Valery Nikolaev, but escapes with the microchip. After learning of the heist, Trechak contacts Simon and hires him to steal a revolutionary cold fusion formula discovered by an American electrochemist, Emma Russell, played by Elizabeth Shue. He wishes to acquire Emma's formula, which creates clean, inexpensive energy, so he can monopolise the energy market during a severe oil shortage in Russia. Under the alias Thomas Moore, Simon poses as a South African traveller and steals the formula after having a one-night stand with Emma. Trechak learns Emma's formula is incomplete and orders his henchmen, led by Ilya, to kill Simon and kidnap Emma in order to obtain the remaining information. Heartbroken, Emma reports the theft to Inspector Teal, played by Alan Armstrong, and Inspector Robineur, played by Charlotte Cornwell of Scotland Yard, who inform her Simon is a wanted international thief. Emma tracks down Simon in a hotel in Moscow and confronts him about the theft and his betrayal. The Russian police, loyal to Trechak, arrest Simon and Emma. However, they manage to escape from the police van as they are being brought to Trechak's mansion. As they flee through the suburbs, Simon and Emma are helped by a prostitute and her family, who shelter them in a hidden room in their home. Later, they meet Frankie, a fence who sells them the directions through an underground sewer system that leads them to the American embassy. Simon and Emma exit through the sewer tunnel, only to find Ilya and his men waiting for them amongst a gathering of protesters outside the embassy's front gates. Emma makes it safely to the embassy for political asylum, while Simon allows himself to be caught by Ilya as a distraction. He escapes after rigging a car bomb, which severely burns Ilya. Simon plants a listening device on Trechak's office, and he learns the plans to perform a coup d'etat by selling the cold fusion formula to Russian President Karpov to frame him for wasting billions on useless technology. Trechak then plans to use the political fallout to install himself as president. Emma finishes the equation to complete the formula, and Simon delivers the information to Trechak's physicist, Dr. Lev Botkin, who builds an apparatus which proves the formula works. Simon infiltrates the president's Kremlin residence and informs him of Trechak's conspiracy just before Trechak loyalists detain him. In front of a massive gathering in Red Square, Trechak makes public the accusations against President Karpov, but when the cold fusion reactor is successfully initiated, Trechak is exposed as a fraud and arrested. He also is revealed to have caused the heating oil shortage in Moscow by illegally stockpiling vast amounts of heating oil underneath his mansion. Sometime later, at a news conference at Oxford University, Emma presents her cold fusion formula to the world. Simon attends the conference in disguise and once again avoids being captured by Inspectors Teal and Robineux. When they spot him in the crowd, he drives away as he listens to a news broadcast voiced by Roger Moore, reporting that the $3 billion was recently donated to the Red Cross, Salvation Army and the United Nations Children's Fund. It is implied by Simon, who had access to Trechak's accounts, donated the money anonymously. Furthermore, a non-profit foundation led by Dr. Botkin is being established to help to develop the cold fusion technology that has now been gifted to the world by Emma. Some trivia about the film. In the original version of the film, Dr. Russell collapses whilst giving a lecture and dies in the Saint's arms as she has a heart condition. The Saint sees Trechak Jr. stabbing her in the leg with the tip of his cane. Thus, the final half an hour has him set to destroy the villain's plans and avenge her death, With Dr. Botkin's help, he switches the formula around and humiliates Trechak during the short trial of the Russian president. The Saint battles Dr. Russell's killer on a stairwell, and Russian tanks pound outside, exposing and setting fire to the vast stockpiles of heating oil in the basement. With the stairwell disintegrating around them, the fight spills out onto the chandelier, suspended above the blazing oil, and the Saint teases Trechak Jr. with the disc containing the remaining formula for cold fusion. As he reaches around for it, the Saint cuts the rope and Trechak Jr. plummets to the fiery death. Returning to Dr. Russell's home, the Saint finds a letter from her. A tear fills his eye and he vows from now on to use his skills only for good. However, test audiences didn't like the way that Russell died 3/4 of the way into the film, and footage from the original ending features prominently in the film's primary trailer. Director Philip Noyce hopes one day he may be able to restore the original version for a director's cut, but I don't, because I think the film's fine the way it is. When Simon Templar is disguised as a long-haired artist, his accent is a fairly good imitation of South African, specifically Cape Townian. He refers to his home in Africa and uses the vernacular of Afrikaans to pronounce Jesus as Jesus as an expletive. Kilmer learned the accent from a South African assistant with whom he worked on The Ghost in the Darkness, the movie he completed shortly before he started filming on The Saint. It's interesting to note that the short story, The Man Who Was Clever, someone does describe The Saint as South African. However, since The Saint has resorted to deception in the past to achieve his goals, the reliability of this information remains in question. Val Kilmer actually passed on returning to the Batman franchise in order to work on The Saint. I think that's a decision we can all regard as a good one. In the film, Simon uses a Nokia 9000 communicator phone. This phone was extremely cutting edge when it was produced in 1996, as it functioned as both a handheld phone and a clamshell pocket calculator, complete with a mini QWERTY keyboard and several built-in apps. Its use in the movie, however, was an accident. Director Royce was talking to a technician working on the film and he noticed the flip phone with the attached keyboard. He thought it was a prop created for the film and the technician told him it was a real phone. Royce decided that the phone would be the one that Templar would use.